Newsom, the same 7th grade. I remember the guy on Baltimore Avenue that called me Newsom. I was in 7th grade. I can handle that.
I mean, you get on that hill and you look for miles and there's nothing. It looks like Hiroshima or just some horrible thing. It's an entire city wiped out. I mean, Pacific Palisades, it doesn't exist and probably won't exist.
As the fires in many parts of Los Angeles die down, we're finally starting to see the full scale of devastation this city has endured in the last few days. And while the news channels are quick to tell us that everything is okay now, I'm here to remind you that nothing is okay. This isn't the first time fires have destroyed communities and uprooted lives in this country, and it won't be the last unless we force them to stop this madness. And we're starting things off with a rather bizarre story where the FBI paid a visit to actor Ben Affleck's Brentwood home.
Hello, is anybody home? Anybody working on 201?
And only a couple of days after this mysterious visit, Mr. Affleck was seen having a heated argument with cops outside of his home. Now, you might be wondering why the FBI is at his house in the middle of a disaster. Well, this guy has a rather interesting theory about it.
Okay, I don't know if this makes sense, but maybe you guys can help me. Why is the FBI checking in on Ben Affleck during the LA fires? Now, this is due to a civilian drone crashing into a Canadian super scooper helping with the fires. The Los Angeles Fire Department states that this Canadian plane called Quebec 1 sustained wing damage and remains grounded and is out of service. But they went to his house in Brentwood, so why are they investigating an incident that happened in the Palisades? Another weird thing is, why is the FBI investigating a situation that is clearly for the FAA, which is the FBI of the sky? Because the fire officials informed the FAA of a firefighting aircraft struck by a drone while it was operating over the Palisades in Los Angeles on Thursday, January 9th. The aircraft landed safely. The FAA will investigate. Now, you want to know what I think? Here we go. Now, we all know Ben and J-Lo got divorced last year very abruptly, but maybe it was just marital problems. Or maybe, just maybe, Ben Affleck knows a little bit more than we think via J-Lo due to the diddler. And not to mention, there's been a lot of tunnel talk about LA fires and the tunnels running throughout the whole city. Now, if you remember, last year I said I find it pretty interesting that Diddy lived only 1 minute away from the Playboy Mansion, in which had tunnels themselves. Yes, this is a blueprint showing tunnels under the Playboy Mansion that lead to other celebrities' homes in the neighborhood. Now, they said that these tunnels were for the stars to gain easy access to the mansion, but was it?
I mean, he is raising some very fair questions. Why did the FBI and not the FAA go to Ben's house to investigate a drone incident? And considering the drone ended up disturbing the fire control efforts, of course people are going to say things like this. I knew it. J-Lo started this crap to cover up the Diddy involvement. Whatever the real story may be, I don't think it's gonna come out. After all, no one is even talking about those strange flying objects that were seen all over Los Angeles during live coverage of these fires.
That guys. Okay, I think we're good there. Oh my god, did you guys hear that? You see what I'm talking about? About these like random ass explosions and shit? Did you guys hear that? Holy crap.
I mean, you tell me, do they look like just your regular drones, or do you think this is some top secret military technology hard at work behind the scenes? Another video that has been blowing up on platforms like X is this story about a California cloud seeding program.
Silver iodide is the most commonly used chemical in cloud seeding. The state of California uses $3 to $5 million annually on cloud seeding. The Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority spent over $1 million last year alone on cloud seeding. And this is the company that they use. This company primarily uses a mixture of silver iodine and acetone for cloud seeding. I'm sure that's fine. Along with silver iodine, acetone, and dry ice, we've also been using potassium iodide and liquid propane for cloud seeding for the last 70 years. Anytime there's any pushback or questions when it comes to cloud seeding, people are just told, well, it's not very effective and the chemicals used aren't toxic. And if you're wondering if any of those chemicals are combustible, well, they're not, but they are highly conductive. If cloud seeding was so ineffective, why would states be spending millions of dollars every year for 70 years to continue to do it? There are very little regulations when it comes to cloud seeding, like very minimal. And most of it is done by private companies. And they say these chemicals are non-toxic, but I would like to see the studies on that, if there are any.
I think she's asking a fair question. If they are saying cloud seeding doesn't really work, then why are they spending so much money on spraying these chemicals into the air? And why in the world are they not spending this money on just making more water collecting reservoirs? And what about forest management? Are we just going to let this happen again and again and again without addressing the fact that we need to manage our forests in order to protect them and the people from a disaster like this?
This is what your forest really looks like. That's why when there's a fire, there's total devastation. Because they don't have control burns no more. Look at all that ground matter. Everywhere you look.
But then again, we all know that's not going to happen. If a natural or not so natural disaster creates financial opportunities for greedy corporations, our politicians are never going to stop that disaster. And this isn't even the first time a fire has destroyed lives and created prospects for future land development. Something like this happened only months ago in New Mexico, and that story was buried under all that election news.
My name is Timmy. I'm from Ruidoso, New Mexico, and this summer, 2024, past summer, our town burned down in the South Fork and Salt fires. The South Fork fire was determined to be caused by lightning, and the Salt fire was determined to be caused by arson. So right before these fires happened, our town was about to have a meeting to discuss low-income housing and gentrification of Airbnb and vacation homes, because we live in a tiny resort town that West Texas oil money come to visit and enjoy the mountains. Before the fires happened, they had a Hollywood film filmed here about Paradise, California, the town that burned down there, starring Matthew McConaughey. So for weeks we had Matthew McConaughey driving around in a little school bus, and everybody was like, starry-eyed about that. The people who are doing these things in our towns across the country, and these people who are starting these fires, these are a wealthy faction of people consisting of influential politicians, real estate moguls, business developers, and environmental manipulation specialists. These people's goal is to reshape the urban landscapes for profit, and this group identifies valuable land susceptible to wildfires, and they use shell companies to buy up the land after they've done the devastation. So currently, our town is working with the USDA buyback program. Okay, all the people who are in the flood zone who weren't able to get insurance, they're going to offer to buy your land, and they're doing it right now. I don't know how the deal is, if it's like good market value, or if they're going to take it by eminent domain if you opt out to not buy.
Now look, it's good that people were at least able to sell that land, but if this trend continues, we're going to lose a lot of our precious small towns and all their culture that comes along with them. And that's their goal, to force these small independent communities into big cities where where they can be controlled much more easily. Another goal is to end the concept of independent farming in this great nation. I'm sure most people haven't even heard about what they did in Marin County. It's a story of how a lawsuit by environmental groups is now forcing 12 ranches to shut down in this small county. According to this article, ultimately, the farm closures are the result of environmental groups' lawsuits, though sources say the government entities abandoned the ranchers throughout this process until they were left with no other choice but to agree to shut down or be pursued with more years of aggressive litigation. According to the legal agreement, over 16,000 acres of former agricultural land will be rezoned as a scenic landscape zone. And a local activist says, the National Park Service will now have the opportunity to manage the natural and cultural resources of the seashore, as they should have been doing, provided adequate funding is available. So let me get this straight. We are already doing a terrible job managing the state-owned natural reserves in California, and now we are forcefully getting even more land that we won't be able to manage because we don't have funds. Does this make any sense? And it's happening in a state which is already notorious for having the highest cost of basic things like milk and eggs. But once again, such mind-boggling policies are common in California, and this strange decision-making was also on full display before the fires even began. We all know how LA Mayor Karen Bass decided to go to a cocktail party when there was a clear warning of a disastrous fire. And instead of preparing the city for such an event, her team was sending emails like this one. In the email, she states, "Since day one, we have worked to bring Angelinos inside with urgency and save lives, and for the first time in years, we were able to bring homelessness down, particularly street homelessness, through our Inside Safe initiative. Just last week, Inside Safe moved people inside from encampments in Silver Lake and Rampart Village." Now, this already is a very misleading statement. A simple search will tell you that in the city of Los Angeles alone, there are about 46,260 homeless individuals, reflecting a 10% rise from 2023. In fact, according to some estimates, over 100,000 people could be homeless in Los Angeles by the 2028 Olympics. And funny enough, she mentions the Olympics in her email. Mayor Bass has sworn in a new chief of the LAPD who is committed to the mayor's public safety agenda, including growing the ranks of the department, building trust across Los Angeles, and preparing Los Angeles to host the World Cup, the Olympic and Paralympic Games, and anything that comes our way. I wonder what this public safety agenda is, because it clearly does not protect people from fires and looting. She hasn't even been able to stop these arsonists who have been terrifying people in LA.
So the cops just knock on my door. I'm taking the first shower that I have felt comfortable taking in this entire week, and I was making it as short as possible to conserve as much water as possible. But I'm just in there like scrubbing this Head and Shoulders through my head quickly, just a quick rinse off. And I hear somebody knock at the door, but there's a language barrier between my neighbors and I, and sometimes if a package gets delivered, like there are some automatic packages that haven't been canceled, etc., etc. So I was like, it's nothing. Then I hear the doorbell ring, and that's a little bit weirder. And obviously we're in the middle of wildfires everywhere. So I'm like, great, this is somebody telling me that I need to evacuate right now. So I hop out quickly. All my go bags are by the door. Oliver, my dog's kennel and stuff, everything's set, ready to go. Tell me why the cops are like, do you know this front neighbor? Because he's setting your front yard on fire. So now they're like, we're just going to sit here all day and make sure he doesn't, because he's been trying all morning. What's wrong? What's happening here? What's going on with...
Then there's the issue of these ruthless landlords who are suddenly charging extra, knowing full well people have no choice but to pay them. One user shared his frustration about these monsters in a tweet. Relisted rental posted yesterday, up 30% from 2 weeks ago, right down the street from me. This is happening all over Los Angeles. Price gougers taking advantage of fire disaster victims and making housing less accessible for everyone across the city. It's not only disgusting, it's illegal. Report these crimes when you see them. Why isn't Karen Bass putting such people behind bars? Even if her intentions aren't bad, and that's a big if, Her actions have shown that she simply isn't competent to run a city like LA. But she just will not accept any of the blame. When a journalist asked her about how she felt about being out of the country during such a critical time, this is what the mayor had to say.
Looking back, would you have taken that trip overseas?
You know, I am going to focus today
but please,
on what we know.
Can I ask you one question about Brown County?
Well, the people of Los Angeles are also giving her a big no as they sign an online petition to remove her. And this petition already has more than 143,000 signatures at the time of this recording. But she isn't the only one who's getting blasted by the people. A petition to recall Gavin Newsom has also received more than 50,000 signatures so far. Organizers from Saving California have also vowed to file papers in the next 2 weeks in hopes of jump-starting the process that could lead to the Democrats' ousting in the middle of his second term in the governor's mansion. And many of these people have actually voted for him in the past. They now want him gone simply because he completely failed to do his job in this crisis. For instance, he said this about the preparedness of the LA Fire Department after the fire warning was issued.
We've got thousands of National Guard men and women that have been on here. We pre-positioned 120 engines, helicopters, dozers, water tenders. We did that on Sunday, 2 days before this event.
This is complete BS because we've already seen so many videos of so many fire engines just wasting away in workshops when they could have been out on the streets.
So this is all equipment that's out of service. It's waiting for repair.
And the fire chief has even told us how the department simply didn't have enough equipment to save their people and their property.
Apparatus, and I mean, I know we still have some stations, for example, that are still haven't fully recovered in their staffing levels with engines that need to get purchased, restaffed. I know at Fire Station 74s, for example. So how many apparatus do you currently have out of commission?
Right, so I can give you those numbers right here.
Perfect.
We have out of service apparatus, we have 40 engines, we have 36 rescue ambulances, and 10 of our trucks that are out of service. And you look at, well, how many actually do we have? It's close to 15 to 20% of our fleet that's out of service.
But for some reason, the FEMA chief also says LA was ready to combat such a large-scale fire event.
Do you have a sense at this point why the area was so unprepared?
I think that they were very prepared. This is something that they are very used to. They fight fires all the time.
Well, I stopped trusting her words after witnessing her actions in North Carolina. I talked about this story before, but here's another survivor of Hurricane Helene telling us how FEMA and the government have been treating them and how people are getting kicked out of hotels in the middle of winter.
Good morning, y'all, from snowy western North Carolina. It's Sunday, January 12th, and I woke up ill as a hornet today. I'm mad all over. I want to preface this by saying that my thoughts and prayers are with California, and I truly mean that. Nobody should have to endure such as that. And I'm happy for them, that they've been issued a blank check to help with their recovery and that no expense is being spared. But where was this blank check, this carte blanche, when our people were drowning and being pulled out of the mud and still being pulled out of the mud? There's heavy media coverage of the wildfires, but most of the country doesn't even know what's going on here in Appalachia. All these celebrities that are coming out all tearful on social media. Where was all this emotion for the people of Appalachia? It's almost as if us dumb mountain folk don't matter. Y'all know I ain't lying. Y'all know we're in the midst of one of the worst natural disasters in American history. Our people are still suffering in ways you can't even imagine. Still. And this is 4 months post-Hurricane Helene. People are still living in tents and cars. Please tell me how that's okay. Somebody riddle me that. People that are in hotel rooms sponsored by FEMA that are fixing to get kicked out in a day or two. And they have nowhere to go. They're being kicked out and we're covered up in snow and ice and it's 16 degrees out there right now. And these are mostly women and children and elderly. tax-paying citizens, mind you. I had water damage to my home, but my insurance company denied the claim, and FEMA denied me that whopping $750, but they did offer me a hotel stay. But since my home is livable, thank goodness, I didn't take them up on it. But still yet, the other day, I got an email from them saying I was being kicked out of the hotel. They don't even know who's staying in these places. Our people are begging for basic necessities, housing, food, stuff to keep them warm. I don't know how FEMA decides who to help and who not to help, and who to make jump through hoops, and people have lost their income. Their places of business were destroyed or have gone bankrupt, or they've lost their means of transportation because their car was destroyed in the hurricane, or they got fired because they had to stay home with their young'uns when the schools and the daycares were closed. There's still so many areas here that look like a nuclear bomb went off. It makes me almost throw up just driving through some of these areas, the ones you can actually drive through now. Families have been separated. Some people have had to send their kids to live across the country with other family members because they just simply can't provide. Funding has run out for the people that were helping with rental assistance. People whose homes were deemed uninhabitable by FEMA, and it's thousands of them, aren't getting enough money or any money to help them rebuild, so they're having to do it on their own, and they just can't afford it. The elderly who don't know how to navigate social media, some of them are just being found by happenstance in their homes that really they shouldn't even be there because of the mold, and they're being hospitalized for lung infections. And babies hadn't stopped being born in the midst of this. Domestic violence hadn't stopped. People are having to escape and go to safety, and there's nowhere to go. Yes, the Amish have come and built tiny houses. And thank goodness for the individuals and the businesses who have donated tiny homes and campers. With some of the campers, they don't know how to winterize them, the people that have them. I wouldn't know how to winterize them. So the pipes are freezing, and so they're not getting heat and water. And it's just been a big learning curve. And there's some people still without electricity, if you can imagine that. But it's the absolute truth. I'm still doing all I can for disaster relief. I don't put it all on here. I just don't think that's necessary. But I still have a garage full of supplies that I'm giving out. I'm networking with people. The need is just so massive, and a lot of y'all have reached out to me asking where to donate, where to go, what to do, and I'm just getting so frustrated because I don't even know what to tell y'all anymore. The need is just so great. And again, I don't want to be accused of speaking with a forked tongue. I really do hope and pray the best for California and for a quick recovery. I do think citizens in Los Angeles are beginning to see that people that they thought had their back don't have their back. While I'm ill and mad on the one hand, on the other hand, I am so thankful and so grateful for those of y'all from all over the country, including California, who've come to help us out. I really don't know where we'd be without y'all. And without us neighbors helping neighbors, us Appalachians, we look out for each other, and we're going to be okay somehow, some way. Anyway, I reckon I've said my piece, so the end.
It's truly disturbing and disheartening, but unless we make a ton of noise about it, they're just going to keep doing this again and again. I mean, this White House representative basically gave us a hint of what's to come.
I just will say one last word, which is, I hope this is my last time at this podium, at least for a little while. I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, the only thing that would bring me back is an unexpected event in the next few days, which, as you all know, is totally possible given everything you've seen over the course of the past years.
And that's going to do it for today's video. I truly hope you guys are safe and sound out there, and I would love to know your opinion on all of this. And if you want me to cover any particular stories, don't forget to mention them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.